I remember that night. It was cold and quiet. The kind of quiet only couples with young kids truly understand. The kids were finally asleep. The kitchen was clean. And the whole world felt like it had shrunk down to the dim glow of the bedside lamp. I was propped up in bed, laptop on my knees, planning to finish an episode of the show I'd been watching. Brian, my husband, walked out of the bathroom, hair still damp, that faint scent of his body wash trailing behind him. I didn't even look up. I just smiled and said, "Can you turn off the light for me?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he sat down beside me, his hand resting gently on my thigh. A familiar gesture, comfortable, warm. But that night, there was something different. His hand lingered a little longer. It was heavier somehow. When I finally looked into his eyes, I knew. He wasn't there to watch TV. "Claire," he whispered, his voice low and hesitant, like he'd been building up to this all night. "It's been a while since we really connected." I swallowed. I'd heard that line before. Or versions of it. Usually, I'd respond with a soft kiss, maybe a hug, and then claim I was too tired. But this time, he added something else. "Would you do that for me? With your mouth?" I froze. A silence spread between us. Not heavy, but thick enough for me to hear the pounding of my own heartbeat. I looked at him, not with anger or judgment but confusion. Not because his request shocked me, but because I realized I had forgotten what that part of me even felt like. I used to do it. I used to love it. Back when we were newlyweds, I felt like a goddess. Powerful, sexy, watching him melt under my touch. I used to initiate, to tease, to own my body like it was something sacred and wild. But after 2 kids, countless sleepless nights, a body that didn't look like mine anymore, and a never-ending to-do list, I'd turned into someone else. Someone who wore baggy tees around the house. Someone who rushed to dress after showers, just to avoid seeing herself in the mirror. Someone who dodged her husband's hungry eyes. Not because she didn't love him, but because she didn't see anything desirable left in herself. I lowered my head, exhaled. "I'm really tired tonight. I have to be up early with Sammy." "Okay." He slowly pulled his hand away. Gentle, as if not to break me. He didn't say anything, just turned and lay down his back to me. I knew he was disappointed. And I was angry. Not at him. At myself. Why did I feel guilty? Why did a simple request from my husband feel like a pressure I couldn't breathe under? I shut my laptop, turned off the light, and lay there. But I couldn't sleep. All I could do was replay those moments. The times I used to do it in the dark, just to satisfy him. While I felt numb, detached. I told myself, as long as he's happy it's fine. But the truth was I had become a hollow shell. No pleasure, no desire, just obligation. The next morning, I made coffee in silence. He walked into the kitchen, looking unsure. "You okay?" he asked softly. I nodded without looking at him. I couldn't. Because if I did, I'd have to admit the one thing I wasn't ready to say. I had stopped recognizing the woman I used to be. That whole day, I walked around like a ghost. Couldn't focus on work. Couldn't let go of his voice from the night before. The way he touched my thigh. That look in his eyes. Part of me felt hurt. But part of me felt ashamed. Later that night, I opened the bottom drawer of my dresser. The one with things I hadn't touched in years. I pulled out a plum silk nightgown I used to wear during our first anniversary. I hadn't worn it in over 4 years. I didn't dare. I held it in my hands, ran my fingers along the soft fabric, and for the first time in a long time, I remembered who I used to be. A woman who felt beautiful, desired, in control. Not just someone's wife, or someone's mom, but a woman. That night, I came out of the bathroom wearing that nightgown. Brian looked up from the bed and just stared. Not with lust but awe. Like he was seeing me for the first time in a long time. But as he reached for me, I stepped back. I wasn't ready. "I want to," I whispered. Just not tonight. Then I kissed him softly. He nodded, pulling me close. I knew he was trying to understand. And I knew I needed to understand myself too. So I started. Slowly. Quietly. I read blogs from women who had been through the same thing. I listened to podcasts about sexuality after marriage. I stood in front of the mirror a little longer each morning, learning to see myself again. Not with judgment, but with softness. And then one afternoon, sitting alone on the porch, the breeze brushing through my hair, I remembered what it used to feel like to do that. Not out of duty, but because I wanted to. Because I loved watching him lose himself in the moment. I remembered him whispering, "Claire, you're amazing," and how that made me feel like a goddess. I used to be that woman. So what made me think I couldn't be her again? The answer wasn't in him. It was in me. In how I had forgotten who I was. In how I had surrendered my right to feel beautiful, powerful, and turned on. I haven't told him yet. But I know very soon. I'll make the first move. Not because I have to, but because I want to feel that part of me again. The woman I used to adore. I didn't plan it. I didn't mark a day on the calendar. But when I woke up that morning, something inside me had shifted. Nothing dramatic. Just quiet. Clear. A kind of want that I hadn't felt in so long I almost didn't recognize it. All I knew was, I wanted to touch him. Really touch him. Not out of obligation. Not because it had been a while. But because I missed how I felt in those moments. Missed the feeling of his hands on my skin. Missed feeling like my body wasn't just for carrying kids, or cooking dinner, or folding laundry. I wanted to feel like a woman again. That day, I got dressed with a little more care. Not a fancy outfit. Just a soft-fitted cotton dress that hugged my waist. I wore the delicate earrings Brian once bought me, just because, and swiped on a rose-tinted lip balm. Nothing loud. Just subtle, enough for me to notice. Enough to remember there was still something warm and sensual inside me, waiting to come alive. I cooked dinner like usual. The kids laughed and argued like they always did. But I caught Brian stealing glances at me across the table. Those quick, half-hidden looks full of curiosity. Like he knew something was different. Like he felt it too. After we tucked the kids in, I stepped into the shower. But this time, I didn't rush. I took my time washing my body, letting the warm water trace over every curve. I looked at myself in the mirror for the first time in a long time. Not to judge, not to criticize, just to see. I ran my fingers over my stomach, my breasts, my hips. This body had changed. It had softened. But it was still mine. Still alive. Still capable of giving and feeling pleasure. I slipped into a silk robe, plum-colored, thin, with just enough cling to suggest what was beneath. I hadn't worn it in years. It felt like greeting an old friend I didn't realize I missed. When I walked into the bedroom, Brian was sitting up in bed reading. He looked up, and his book dropped onto the comforter. His eyes scanned me slowly, reverently. He didn't say a word. I climbed onto the bed, straddling his lap, knees on either side of his hips. I could feel the heat radiating off him, and the firmness pressing between us, unmistakable even through the thin fabric of his pants. "I think I'm ready," I whispered. "No expectations. Just let me take care of you tonight." He exhaled, as if he'd been holding his breath. His hands slid up my thighs, gentle at first, then firmer. But before he could pull me closer, I took his wrists and gently pushed them back onto the mattress. "Not yet," I said with a small smile. I leaned in and kissed him. Slowly, deeply. His mouth opened to me like he'd been starving. Our tongues met in that soft, hungry rhythm lovers find when they've missed each other for too long. My hands roamed his chest, under his shirt, feeling the steady thrum of his heartbeat. I kissed along his jaw, down his neck, over the ridge of his collarbone. He groaned, low and breathy. His hands twitched against the sheets, aching to touch me, but he didn't. He let me lead. I moved lower, tugging at his shirt, pressing kisses to his stomach. His muscles tensed under my lips, and I could hear his breath stutter. I looked up once, just to see his eyes dark with want, and then slid his pants down slowly, savoring the way he trembled under my touch. And then, I took him into my mouth. At first I went slow, deliberate, letting my tongue trace every inch, memorizing the way his body reacted to me. His hips shifted slightly, and I rested my hands on his thighs to hold him still. He moaned, quiet at first, then louder. "Claire," he breathed. But I didn't stop. I didn't rush. I moved how I remembered he loved, changing rhythm, teasing the tip, letting my lips create just the right kind of pressure. His fingers clutched the sheets, and I knew he was close. So I stopped. I pulled away slowly, letting him feel the absence. He opened his eyes, dazed and desperate. "Not yet," I whispered again, sliding up his body, straddling him once more. His hands found my hips this time, and I let him hold me. "I want to feel you," he said, voice rough with need. I reached down, guided him inside me and gasped. It had been so long since I'd felt this full, this alive. I moved slowly, my body adjusting, then finding that perfect rhythm. His hands gripped me tighter, but he didn't lead. He just followed. We rocked together, not just in lust, but in something deeper. Like we were rediscovering each other. Like we were rediscovering ourselves. When I leaned down, pressing my chest to his, I could feel his heartbeat against mine. My breath came in shallow bursts. And when I looked into his eyes, I saw something more than desire. I saw love, a kind of sacred worship that had nothing to do with sex, and everything to do with us. And when we came together, it was overwhelming. I cried out, not just in release, but in relief. It was like breaking through a wall I didn't even know I had built. I collapsed onto his chest, breathless and shaking. He wrapped his arms around me, kissed the top of my head and whispered, "You're back." I didn't respond. I just let myself rest there, skin to skin, our bodies still tangled. I could still feel him pulsing inside me. Still feel my own body humming from the inside out. We made love again that night. Slower, softer, with even more reverence. The second time wasn't about proving anything. It was about savoring. His hands traced every part of me like a prayer. And I let him. I opened myself up. Not just physically but emotionally. I let him see me again. Let him worship me again. And the most surprising thing? I worshiped myself too. I thought it would end with satisfaction. A single night of release, then back to normal life. But it didn't. Something inside me had truly awakened. Not just lust, but a deep primal hunger that had been buried so long I forgot it had a voice. This wasn't about pleasing anyone else. It was about me, my womanhood, my body, my desire to feel everything again. I remember walking downstairs the next morning, barefoot, hair tousled, wearing nothing but his shirt. My lips were still swollen from our kisses. My thighs still ached in the most delicious way. He turned from the coffee pot, and the look in his eyes. It wasn't just attraction. It was awe. Like he was seeing me again for the first time. Not the mother of his children, not the woman who folds his shirts, but a lover, a flame, a fantasy. I slid onto the kitchen stool. The hem of his shirt barely covered me, my thighs brushing together. He handed me coffee, our fingers touched. A static spark. We held that touch 1 second longer than necessary. No words. Just heat. That night, after the kids were asleep, I didn't wait for him. I called him into our room, locked the door behind him, didn't speak. I walked up to him, grabbed his collar and kissed him hard, open-mouthed, hungry. His back hit the bed frame. His hands found my ass, gripping it tight like he didn't believe I was real. I pushed him onto the bed and climbed on top. I wasn't playing this time. I needed him. I hovered over him, hair falling around his face, our breaths tangled. I could feel him, already hard, already pressed against me through his boxers. I let the silk robe fall open, let my bare skin press to his. My breasts flattened against his chest, my thighs straddling his hips. We kissed. Deep, messy, gasping kisses. My hands slid under his shirt, scratching down his chest. He moaned low and hoarse when I kissed down his neck and bit his shoulder. "You're making me insane," he whispered. "Good," I said and pulled his pants down. I didn't waste time. I guided him into me slowly, gasping at the fullness, at the stretch, at the way my body welcomed him like it had been waiting for years. We moved together, fast, slow, then fast again. I was in control. I rode him until my thighs shook, until my vision blurred, until the room echoed with our breath, our moans, the sound of skin on skin. I leaned forward so he could suck my breasts, his tongue circling my nipple while I ground my hips in circles. He growled into my skin, and I swear it made me wetter. "Right there," I whispered, gripping his hair. "Don't stop." He didn't. I lost count of how many times I came. Once, twice, maybe 3 times before I collapsed forward, chest to chest, our bodies slick with sweat. But we weren't done. He flipped me onto my side, one leg over his hip, and slid back in, deeper, slower, more deliberate. One hand cupped my breast. The other found that sweet spot between my thighs, and played me like an instrument. "Do you like this?" he whispered in my ear, voice gravel and silk. "Yes, harder, just like that," I moaned, biting into the pillow. He thrust into me, slow and hard, each movement making me see stars. My nails dug into his arm. My breath came in ragged sobs of pleasure. And then it hit again. Another orgasm, deep and blinding, rippling through me like a tidal wave. I cried out, body jerking, toes curling. He came right after, groaning my name into my neck, holding me like he never wanted to let go. We lay tangled, hearts pounding, breath mingled. He kissed my shoulder and whispered, "You've never been this on fire." I smiled, turning to face him. I'm just getting started." He laughed, pulling me closer. But his eyes didn't leave mine. He was seeing a woman reborn. And maybe he was right. I don't fear my body's changes anymore. The stretch marks, the softness, the curves that weren't there before, all of it is mine. Proof that I've lived, that I've felt, that I still can. I'm not 25 anymore. But I don't need permission to feel sexy at 38. This body still burns, still aches, still craves to be touched, kissed, tasted. Desire doesn't die with age. It just waits for the right spark. And now, I'm ablaze.